Hi, I'm Allison Bruner, your soul sister, human guide, and rebirth midwife. I offer shamanic healing and guidance to people who are going through major transformation. Welcome to Together We Awaken, Finding Light in the Dark. This is episode 8. What will they think of me? Fear, connection, and the journey to self acceptance. This episode is personal. Well, they all are in their own way, but this one touches something I've been feeling deeply lately in my bones. Something that came up in the very first hearth circle that I held last week, where I sat with a group of people, most of whom had never met before, and felt this kind of, awkwardness and a quiet ache in the room. The theme that emerged was connection, but not like the romanticized version of connection. Not connection as in community brunches or soulful eye gazing or in candlelit circles. I'm talking about what it really feels like to step into a space with strangers and have these thoughts. Will they like me? Will I have to shrink or perform? Can I be real? Am I too much? Am I not enough? And some of this was spoken aloud. Some of it was spoken aloud, and then some of it kind of hung quietly in the room, that I could feel. I think we all felt, but I recognized it. I felt it because it's familiar. It lives in me too. For much of my life, I didn't know how to feel safe just being me. I figured out pretty early that I was fun, that I had charisma. I loved storytelling. I loved people. And when I brought that energy into a room, people lit up. So I leaned in and then some. And I became the performer, a little bit of the drama queen, tad histrionic. I sought attention, not because I was shallow or manipulative, but because I was scared. Scared that if I didn't perform, if I didn't sparkle, I'd be abandoned. And underneath of it all was this tender little girl who had always felt invisible and believed that her quiet, sensitive, gentle self wasn't enough. And then came graduate school, and a new version of me emerged, the intellectual. I got straight A's for the first time, and I got praised for being smart and articulate and insightful. So I clung to that. It felt good. My worth became tied to being right, being sharp, being the one who knew. But my soul was kind of stirring in other ways too. I developed this deep devotion to spirit, to Divine Mother. I started to remember who I really was. And I mean, not just as a human, beyond that. But I was afraid to show that part of me, afraid of being misunderstood, of being dismissed by Christian family, clients, friends. I was afraid I'd be made fun of. So I hid it. Even the part of me that was the most sincere and rooted in love, I hid that too. And the further down my path of spirituality that I went, the more sensitive I became, the more awakened my extrasensory abilities, psychic abilities, and I became overwhelmed by the noise of the world, and I disappeared. I spent the last 10 years mostly in isolation. I cut myself out of groups. I lived in the countryside. I walked by streams. I sat in the grass. I cried alone. I prayed alone. I did a deep dive into my inner world, unearthing layer after layer of who I was beneath all the masks. And now I've been coming back into community, but something strange has been happening. People seem to find me intimidating, which is wild to me because I don't feel intimidating at all. I feel like the last intimidating person I know, or the least intimidating person I know. But I've noticed how people don't know how to approach me. They don't know how to find their way in. And I think it's because I've always been the one holding space. From the time I began as a psychotherapist, I'm often seen as the one who's got it together, who's done all the healing, who's strong and wise and clear. And I do have wisdom and I've healed a lot, but I still have a lot more to learn and I'm not perfect. I cry, I break down, I get scared, I feel lonely, I ache for closeness, and I still wonder if anyone will ever really get me. The truth is, the only people who've ever fully seen me, who um, ever truly met me at the depth that I long for, have been people that I've paid. A therapist for 10 years, a shamanic healing guide for 9, and that kind of hurts. That wound is real. And if I'm being honest, it's still healing. I think a part of me has been afraid to show that pain, afraid that if I admit I still have questions, still have longings, still have grief, that maybe people won't trust me to guide them. But here's what I know now. The more I hide that part of me, the harder it is for anyone to find their way in. Because when we only show our strength, I'm figuring out, we rob others of the chance to love us in our tenderness. And I've always known this, right? But I never saw this happening in myself. So this fear of being seen, it's not just about other people. It starts inside. And I'll explain. We're afraid to be seen by others because we haven't fully seen ourselves. We judge our sensitivity or our awkwardness or our confusion, even our rage and our tears, and think if I show that, I won't be lovable. So we become performers, perfectionists, overfunctioners. We hustle for love. But underneath all of it is a part of us whispering, am I okay as I am? And sometimes that thought is still met with silence. The fear of not being enough in the eyes of others is almost always rooted in not feeling enough in the eyes of our own self, which is why the answer, however simple or complex, is this. It begins by seeing ourselves, really seeing without flinching, without needing to be anything more than what we already are. Meeting our own eyes in the mirror, so to speak, and saying, even if you're still healing, even if you still hurt or cry easily or break down and sometimes just do not know the way, I love you and I'm staying. That kind of self love is what melts the fear. And that's what I want to talk more about next. There was a moment in that first hearth circle, about halfway through, when I was in a kind of a trance state doing work with the non human helpers that heal through me, where something shifted. It was subtle. It was not like a big dramatic release, but there was this gentle softening in the group, a little breath of um, truth and release, and then another. Someone I could feel, or I should say, prior to the start, people had shared things like, I didn't know if I was going to make it today. I didn't know if I was going to come, or I was kind of scared. In so many words, I'm paraphrasing for people's privacy, but um, yeah, I was worried that I'd have to perform or what people would think of me. Um, I didn't know if I had enough energy to be on. And it was like in that healing that was moving through me, there was a collective exhale because suddenly it was like the pressure was off and there was no more reason to perform, and no one had to be healed or spiritual or wise, and we didn't need curated stories or perfect words. What we needed and craved, I think, was honesty. And that shift, sort of like when one person goes first and is real, you know, it creates a doorway. It gives others permission to also be real. It's like an invitation, come as you all are. You know, I've led the way. And here's the thing. I thought I was holding space for them to explore more connection and to heal wounds around connection. But as I dropped into the healing work, going into that trance state, allowing Divine Mother and my spirit allies to move through me to offer collective soul retrieval, I didn't realize that I was actually receiving one too till afterwards. And I started processing what happened. And in the days that followed, something cracked open in me and mass realizations started surfacing about my own relationships with connection and how for almost 18 years now I've been a space holder, a guide, a container for other people's healing. But before that, I wasn't. Before that, others held space for me, but I didn't show up fully in that space. I performed, I protected, I wasn't real. And now for the first time, I'm being asked to enter circle not as the leader, not as the one with the answers, not as the wise guide, but as the woman who is still learning how to show up as herself. The one who, quite honestly, hasn't nurtured her own inner softness enough. I've been doing it for a few years now, and it still hasn't, I still haven't fully gone there. The woman who's been hardened by years of effort, the one who's been trying to hold everything together for everyone. And in doing that, I became the masculine for my own feminine. I structured, I held, I endured, but I did not let myself fully receive. I didn't let myself melt into the softness I so often create for others. That's safety for them to do that. And I'm realizing I can't keep that up anymore. My feminine is tired. She's craving slowness and pleasure, creativity and rest, water, so much water, movement, dance, flow, being. I have been to 3 dance performances in the past month, and there's more to come. And that's why I'm moving, not just physically, but energetically, to a place where I can swim again, where I can be in community that nourishes, where I can be met, held, loved, where I can stop doing all the time and start being a whole lot more. Because connection isn't just something that I offer, it's something I need. And I'm finally letting that truth be okay. So, how do we begin? How do we move from performing to being more present, from fear to self acceptance, from shrinking ourselves to truly being seen by others? And the truth is, it's not a one step process, it's a practice. It's, it begins with this question: what parts of me am I still afraid to let others see? That question alone can open a doorway. It might bring up some discomfort, some sadness, some anger, embarrassment, or maybe even a little relief, like, whew, exhale, I'm finally here. Start there. Start with the parts you've shoved in the shadows, the ones you thought were too much or not enough, the ones who didn't get chosen in childhood, in love, in school, in family, the ones who still flinch when someone doesn't respond to a text. Those parts matter. And they're often the ones running the show when we enter a room and wonder what people will think of us. So, if you want to explore this more deeply, go back and listen to episode 6 on inner parts work. Was it 6? Yeah, episode 6. If in there, I guide you through a gentle practice to meet these parts with curiosity and compassion. You'll see that inner child, the one who was hurt and ignored or laughed at or judged, isn't gone. She's still here and she's still waiting for you to say, I see you. I love you. You get to come with me now. You can also listen to episode 5, where I talk about the inner perpetrator, the part that criticizes and shames us for not being perfect or not getting things right, the voice that keeps us from even trying to connect because we're so sure that we're already doing it wrong. But there is another way other than that inner criticism. You can begin to build a relationship with yourself that's rooted in compassion, and you don't need hours a day to do this. Just some moments of just getting present and honest with yourself, deeply honest. So when you're feeling nervous before going into a social space, just pause and ask yourself, what part of me is scared right now? And when you're tempted to put on a mask, to perform, to be something you think others will find palatable, ask yourself, what would it be like just to be me? And when you catch yourself people pleasing or over explaining, you can also ask gently, of course, what am I afraid will happen if I stop this people pleasing or over explaining, performing? You don't have to fix yourself. That's not what this is about. And none of this is because there's something wrong with you. This is all about your humanness and about loving the parts of you that have been trying to keep you safe. sometimes in outdated ways that aren't serving you anymore. And here's the thing, the more you start seeing yourself, the less power other people's opinions will hold over you. And you'll stop wondering, will they like me? And you'll start asking, do I feel like myself when I'm with them? Because that becomes the new compass, not compliance, but, you know, alignment, not fitting in, but belonging. And it begins always with you. So, what happens when we begin to really see ourselves? We stop walking into rooms and scanning for rejection. We stop performing. We stop trying to shrink or shine ourselves into someone else's comfort zone. And we start just coming home, being ourselves, taking up right space. We're in our truth and our tenderness. We're in touch with our needs and are fine with our quirks and our softness and our strength. And we are the person we've always been underneath all the masks. And what's wild is when you show up as you, something pretty remarkable happens. You start to attract people who recognize you, not just like you or tolerate you or admire you from a distance, but who really see you, who breathe easier in your presence because you give them permission to be real too. You'll be attracting people who love you, not despite your sensitivity or your softness or your weirdness, but because of it. Your relationships deepen. With some people, there's a caveat to that. Your boundaries get clear, your energy returns, and suddenly community feels like something that you no longer have to chase and more like something that you're allowing. The caveat is the more you are, the more you might notice, not more, but you might start to notice there are some who've been in your life that are not okay with you. And that's okay. Really is. They weren't meant for you. And then the ones that are not in alignment with you will fall away. Or you'll start to feel increasingly uncomfortable with the ones who can't meet you and you'll walk away. I've had to do some of that lately too. I'm still walking this. After years of holding space for others, after decades of being the strong one, the capable one, the one who always has it together, which was only a facade, by the way. I don't. I'm learning how to let myself be held. I'm learning to say, I need support. I don't know the answers. And to admit when I'm tired or lonely or afraid, and to stop trying to prove my worth through effort and instead let myself receive. And that's why I created the hearth. Woo, it's a lot of sun coming in right now, but I love it. I'm probably disappearing in the light. Just know I'm here. I know it's not very professional looking for the podcast, but whatever. It's real. So the hearth healing circle. It's not a space where I'm going to pretend that I have it all figured out. It's a space where we all get to remember together that we're worthy of connection just as we are. No performance, no pressure, just presence, just being ourselves in our truth. You don't have to be perfect. You get to be you. So, thank you for being here with me today. Thank you for sitting with the discomfort and the truth and the beauty of what it means to be seen, not for who we think we need to be, but for who we already are. So, if today's episode stirred something in you, brought some interesting or things up that you're curious about, if you recognize that there's a performer within you, a perfectionist, one who wants to be liked, if you feel the ache to be held and met and be real, you're not alone, and you are welcome to explore this more deeply with me. You can listen to, like I said, episode 6 for guided practice on inner parts work, or episode 5 to explore your inner critic and how to soften its grip. When you're trying to get in touch with an inner part and all you can hear is judgment, you need to work with the inner perpetrator, inner critic. That you work with that first, and then you can go deeper to the vulnerable parts. Or maybe you're ready to be in sacred space with others who are also laying down their masks and coming home to themselves. And if so, I would love to welcome you to the hearth. The next circle is happening. Well, I'm recording this a week and a day in advance. So by the time you get this, it'll be the first Monday in June. It's every first Monday of the month at 6 p.m. And you can find all the details at AllisonBruner.com. These circles are small, intimate, and spirit-led. You don't have to bring anything but yourself. You can bring a journal if you want to, and maybe a cozy blanket, a candle, a cup of tea. You can wear your pajamas. And if you're not ready for that, that's okay too. Take this at your pace. And remember, the journey to connection, it begins with you inside, seeing yourself, loving yourself, coming home to yourself. And I'm walking that path right alongside you. So much love and well wishes. Take care. See you next week.